Hey everybody, Dr. G here. I'm a clinical and forensic psychologist as well as a body language expert, and today we're going to be analyzing the behavior and body language of Luigi Mangione. Luigi Mangione was recently arrested as the prime suspect for the murder of Brian Thompson, the CEO of UnitedHealthcare. Before we get started with this, a couple of quick things. One, I wanted to make sure you know this is not a psychological evaluation of any kind. These are just my opinions. In addition to that, I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, let's go. Now, we don't have a lot of footage, but we're going to look at a couple of clips today to see what we can glean from his behavior and his body language. Let's jump right in. Now, the first thing I want you to pay attention to is the position of his chin and his nose, the way his neck is very exposed. Now, when we're feeling very vulnerable, we put our chin down. We try to protect our neck because it's a very vulnerable location. But when we put our chin up, that shows that we don't feel threatened by others. It's a sign of confidence. Some people will interpret it as arrogance. It really depends on the context of the situation. But as he's doing this right now, he doesn't hang his head down in shame. Let's go back and then we're going to keep watching. He's also walking with a good amount of intensity. Look at this right here. He's keeping his chin up, like I said, keeping his neck exposed. Oftentimes when people are feeling shame, they're going to look down, and when they're feeling defensive, they're going to block their neck. So when they're looking down in shame, that's not necessarily defensiveness. That's not wanting people to see their face. He doesn't seem to be ashamed of anything. And he may be experiencing fear right now, but that's not obvious. He's not showing body language associated with fear. Let's watch this sequence all over once again. You know, one thing you're seeing is that he's looking around very casually. Now, that may not mean much to you, but one of the things they're going to be, I'm sure, exploring here is whether or not he's got some sort of severe mental health issue, whether or not he's disconnected from reality. There's nothing obvious about that right now. If there are those kinds of issues, he seems organized enough to recognize the situation. He seems to appear to know what's going on around him. You're not seeing a blank stare or any unusual sort of looks on his face. He's also taking big strides. Once again, there does seem to be a certain degree of confidence with what's going on right now. And maybe there's a sense of pride. There doesn't seem to be any obvious shame, though. Now we're going to see him going into court for an extradition hearing because they're going to try to extradite him to New York.
And completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
So I talked about the intensity before. We're seeing that much more clearly now. Let's see if we can see a little bit more of his face.
And completely out of touch and
you can see he's baring his teeth. He's got his brow furrowed down. Those are obvious signs of anger. Once again, he has his chin up. He's standing up straight. There's anger. There's confidence. Now, I talked to the last one about how he doesn't look disorganized. We don't know whether there's anything mental health-wise. This behavior, I'm sure, is going to bring more of that into question. I don't know his mental health background, but I'm sure that will be explored in court. Let's keep watching.
an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Luigi, did you do it?
And completely out of touch and an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Now, I want you to pay a close attention to his facial expressions here, because I talked about anger before, but this seems more like rage. And if he is, in fact, guilty of what he's been accused of, you're maybe getting a better idea of the level of rage that he may be experiencing.
Luigi, did you do it?
And completely out of touch.
See, you can really see the brow and the baring of the teeth there. There truly appears to be curiosity, anger, rage below whatever it is he's saying. I still can't fully understand what he's saying, but it seems to be something about the intelligence of the American people.
And an insult to the intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
Now, that was real rage right there. You heard he stomped. And if you see his face, let me see if I can get a good shot of his face right here. Look at the rage right there. You heard him stomp and then say this. There seems to be a truly burning rage inside of him as he says this, to let out that stomp, to let out that furiosity while he has police leading him. Oftentimes people feel the need to behave in a certain way in situations like this. Oftentimes there's some degree of compliance. I'm not saying he should or shouldn't or anything like that. I'm just saying that typically what we see. Right here, we're seeing somebody that does not care about the context of what's going on. He has something he wants to say, and the rage below it all is just exploding forth.
The intelligence of the American people and the lived experience.
We'll go ahead and stop here. Hopefully this is giving you a better idea of some of the behavior and body language we're already seeing from him. Now, something that was said in court was they asked him if he had any drug or mental health issues, and he said no on both accounts. Now, one thing to be very clear on is that for people that have either substance or mental health issues, typically are going to answer no to that question unless they have a very well-documented history that somehow is relevant. But we can't assume that that's necessarily true. This is going to be a very long and complicated process. I'm sure we will find out more as we continue to go on. But just because he said there's no drugs or mental health, I don't think you can take things like that at face value. I'm not suggesting there are those issues, but you just can't eliminate them just based on him saying that. Obviously, we saw today someone who is expressing an intense amount of rage, someone who doesn't seem to have any shame right now, and someone who also appears very confident in this situation. But whether or not there are underlying mental health issues that are related to that, I'm sure we will find out. If you have any other thoughts, please let me know in the comments below. Last thing before we get finished up is I do want to remind you to like and subscribe if you want to see more content just like this. All right, thanks for watching.